everyone. It's Shelley Hoffman with PAC-B TV, and I am here with Rob Just from Main Street Wealth Management. And he's been gracious enough during the time of the social distancing to talk with us about what's going on with the CARE Act, which is something that the federal government is put into place to help us individually and if you're a small business. So Rob, I thank you for being here. And just to give Rob credit, he actually did this with me earlier and I messed it up. So we're here again today.
Thanks for having me, Shelley.
Sure. What can you tell us? What do you think as far as like an individual out there that's starting to have some stress? What's some relief that's coming in that the federal government's doing for us?
Okay, well, there's quite a bit of things out there to help the individuals and families. You've heard about the stimulus checks. Just to go over that, is the government is sending every person $1,200 and every child under age 17, $500.
Okay.
So that I last heard today should be going out in about 2 to 2.5 weeks.
Okay.
There is some guidelines or restrictions in terms of income for a single person. If you make over $75,000, that $1,200 will be reduced. If you make over $99,000, it's gone away. Okay. Married filing joint, if you make under $150,000, you get the whole amount. If you make over $150,000, it'll be reduced. Over $198,000, it's done away with completely. And then head of household over $122,500, it'll be phased out up to $146,500, where it'll be eliminated.
So let me ask you this, Rob, because obviously if you're making $199,000 or more, you know, maybe you don't need that $1,200, but
Right.
What if you're one of the people that are not deemed essential and you're not making any money? How is it determined whether you know what your current amount of money is? Like where's that number coming from, I guess?
If you've already filed your 2019 taxes, then they're going to go off of that return. Okay. If you haven't, then unfortunately they're going to go off of 2018. Okay. They want to use a documented return so they can turn this around quickly and not have people have to get online and apply for it, et cetera, and so forth. So the one thing is, so let's say you file your 19 return and it's based on last year's numbers, and then you've lost your job. They're going to give you the money, the reduced amount, potentially based on the 19 return. And when you file your taxes next year, you will get the rest. Okay. So unfortunately, it doesn't help all of it now, but eventually you will get all of that money.
Okay. No, that makes sense. And I think it was something similar. Something happened back with 9/11, correct? It was a similar type of a situation.
2008, it happened when we went into the recession. They gave $600, and that was a little bit. Well, the idea was a little bit different. The idea behind that was to give money to people, so then people would take that money and go out to eat, take trips for it, buy things as a way to spur the economy. Okay, get more money into the economy. It's so different now because you can't spend that money, really. It's nothing's open. So technically it's not a stimulus check. Technically the government is calling it a recovery rebate, is to help people recover. Use it to pay bills or put it in to create an emergency fund. So it's a little bit different idea or the reason behind it, but the bottom line is they're sending us free money. So.
Right.
And it's not taxable. So
you kind of made a good point that there's not a whole lot that we can do, with the money. Like we can get takeout, from like Pizza Man in the Village. I believe it really is opening back up. But it's also a time possibly to invest the money if you can, correct? Like those people that are still working, still have the money coming in, this would be a little bit extra. So it's they're not telling you how to use the money. So if you can possibly take it and put it towards when the world opens back up, or I believe we talked before about maybe putting it away in case this would happen again, almost like a little.
Correct. And a lot of people that I've talked to in the past 2 weeks, basically I said that's that's what they're going to do with it initially. It's just put it away, don't spend it, don't use it for anything, don't pay down debt yet. Just keep it there in case this thing goes on for, 4 or 5 months instead of the 2 or 3 months. So.
I gotcha. Nice. So that's obviously a great perk that most people are going to benefit from. What else does the CARE Act?
Couple other things that we haven't heard a lot about, we're starting to hear a lot about now, is the federal government has changed or given us an add-on to the state unemployment. Okay, the federal government is calling it a boost payment. So what they're going to do is give people who are collecting state unemployment an additional $600 per week for a duration up to 4 months. Okay, so you collect your unemployment from the state, which is based on your income. Okay, the maximum is $504 a week, and then the federal government will give you $600, and that $600 is not based on income. It's going to be $600 regardless. So for a lot of people, that $600 plus the unemployment, you could be making more unemployed than when you were working.
It's funny because, like I said, you were nice enough to talk to me yesterday, and we're talking again today. And over the course of the 24 hours, I had conversations with some people who were not deemed essential, and they're staying home and they're collecting unemployment. And their boss said that additional $600, they're actually going to be making more than if she could bring them into work. Actually, I had that conversation twice. Another, in the medical field, they could only offer about 16 hours of work. So if they work that 16 hours, that's not the same amount of money they would get through unemployment in the 600. But so, and I know you're going to get into it later, but the federal government has to be aware of that. So they're putting other things in place as well.
The other thing with the unemployment is that New York State has eliminated the 1 week or 7-day waiting period to collect benefits.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so prior you used to apply, you got approved, you'd have to wait 7 days to get your first benefit check. Now the state has waived that 7 days, and it will start immediately, or as soon as you apply and you get through the system. That was kind of a federal government. They went to each individual state and said, we think you should change and do away with the waiting period. The states came back and said, financially, we really can't. So now the federal government is reimbursing the states that are offering that.
Okay. Was the waiting period kind of to verify the unemployment status, and you know what I mean? Is that what they did the 7 days for, whereas now they're not verifying, or is it just always that a quick return, you get approved?
The 7-day was basically just a buffer in case, you went back to work, in case you were called back, in case you found another job initially. But it doesn't seem like that's 1 week would really.
Yeah.
So,
no. And in this pandemic that we're in, it's good not to wait that 7 days because it's stressful. It's stressful.
Exactly.
Money coming
Exactly. And everything's changing on a daily basis. So,
yeah.
And actually New York State, kudos to New York State, because they eliminated the 1 week before the Fed said, we will reimburse you guys for doing this.
Oh, wow. Nice. We get a lot of grief in New York for things that we do, but in this time period, at least, what I'm hearing is New York is kind of stepping up and trying to help, get information out there, and
right.
It's
a couple other programs. The state, the federal government has extended the tax filing deadline. So instead of April 15th, now it's July 15th. Just to give people more time. If a taxpayer owes money, it gives them more time to come up with the money. And that is both at the state and federal level. New York State came out after that and said, okay, we'll extend ours also. And that includes the extension for an IRA contribution. Okay, so you may want to take this recovery rebate and fund an IRA for it. Okay, so July 15th is where you don't have to file or pay until. So it's a nice feature. A couple other things, just smaller ones that I'm sure you've heard of is there's some federal student loan relief. Okay, payments. The government said that payments can be deferred through September 30th. And during that time period, the interest rates on the loans will be 0. So if you can't make a payment and you don't make any payment, it's not accruing interest. Now the caveat here is this is only for the federal public student loans, okay? It's not for the private individual loans. So if you had the student loans and you refinanced with a bank or someone else for the student loans, these, you wouldn't get the deferment or the 0% interest. That would have to be on a case-by-case basis.
Okay.
Okay. And then the last thing I want to talk about for the individuals is for the year 2020, all required distributions that people have to take once they hit now 72 from IRAs and retirement plans have been waived. So they do not have to take money out of their IRA, don't have to pay taxes on it. They still can if they need the money, but they don't have to, which is nice. And then the other thing is you can take up to $100,000 withdrawal from your IRA and not have a 10% penalty if you're under the age of 59 and a half. Okay, so basically the federal government is giving us another avenue to grab some money. So up to 100,000, no 10% penalty. You will have to pay taxes on it, but the government says you don't have to pay the taxes on it for 3 years. So you can wait until 3 years from now and pay the taxes. You could send some tax money in now. It's totally up to you, but you do have 3 years. If you pay back that withdrawal, then it becomes a tax-free loan because then you won't have any taxes. And you have the 3 years to pay it back. So it becomes a 3-year rollover instead of the old 90-day rollover rule.
Nice. That's what I was gonna ask, was just if you had paid it all back, there was no penalty to it.
Right. No taxes, right?
And people might need that money. We don't know how long this is going to go on for. And we never, I know you would never in your business, us people say they had to take the money out of that, right? But now there's a little bit more leeway, which is nice. So, and that seems like they're doing a lot for us as individuals. I know the CARE Act also has a lot for small businesses because I was looking into that myself a little bit, just for, for the business that I have.
The CARE Act has things for everything. For major corporations, airline industries being bailed out, hospitals, healthcare industry, almost every sector of the economy, there is some type of funding going on. The two biggest that I thought would be the most advantageous for the local viewers would be the individual and the small business. And the small business, now the CARES Act, I downloaded the actual final bill, and it's about 880 pages long, and it is
cover to cover.
It is. I haven't gotten through the whole thing yet, but programs for the small businesses seem to be changing almost hourly. Okay, just because it's so different, complicated, whatever, it's changing hourly. So right now, the way it stands is there's a program called the Paycheck Protection Program. It's for small businesses with 500 or less employees. And basically, it is available for nonprofit organizations, for sole proprietors, self-employed, independent contractors, contract workers, regular businesses up to 500 employees. Now, the other couple of nice things about it is for the hospitality, for hotel and restaurant business, they are looking at individual locations to hit that 500 employee criteria. Meaning, if a restaurant has 5 locations, but one corporation, they're only looking at each location as being its own separate entity for this program, so which is really nice. Same thing for franchises. Okay, there's many franchises that have been approved for looking at individual locations for that small business classification. And basically what the program says is, the bottom line is the program says, the federal government says, if you keep all your employees employed during this, we will pay for them. So what happens is these businesses have to show the government their average monthly payroll based on the last 12 months. If they weren't in existence last year, it's January and February of this year's payroll. Okay, so the maximum a company could borrow, a small business, is 2.5 times their monthly payroll. Okay, up to $10 million. So the money can be used for payroll, can be used for interest on mortgage, rent, utilities, and healthcare costs for the employees. At the end of 8 weeks from now, 8 weeks from the time you get approved, you have to go back to the government and say, okay, here's my payroll. It's the same. I haven't lost anybody. It's the same or more. Then the government will forgive that upfront money that they gave you, because technically it's a loan. So they'll say, okay, you don't have to pay it back. Now, if for some reason your payroll is a little bit less, then it will be prorated and not 100% of the loan will be forgiven. Okay. The other really nice feature is any of the forgivable loan is non-taxable.
Okay.
Okay. And
So,
okay, go ahead.
I was just say, just to clarify it, let's just say that I had a business and I borrowed, we'll make it simple math, like $1,000, and I did my payroll and I used $800 of it. $800 would be forgiven, and I'd have to pay back the $200. So if I would get the loan, it would almost make sense to put it into an account, right? And then use it. And then anything that would be left over, the government would expect to come back. So I would just send that money back. Is that how it works?
The way it's going to work is at least 75% of the money they give you has to be used for payroll. The other 25 can be used for the rent, the utilities, the health insurance. So at the end of the 8 weeks, if you have spent more than 25% on those other items, then that percentage will be knocked off of the forgivable loan.
Gotcha.
Okay, so as long as you should stay within the 75-25, 100% will be forgivable.
Okay.
There's a formula, it's crazy, but now this is retroactive to February 15th. So if the start of all of this in the beginning of March, you got rid of an employee, you can base your payroll back to February 15th when you were fully staffed, up and running, and everything going great.
And if I understand correctly from us talking previously, this was put in place for one reason, because so many people have applied for unemployment.
Correct. Right. 10.6 million the last 2 weeks. So the government is trying to, get companies to say, okay, we're not going to furlough, we're not going to get rid of these, because the government doesn't want these unemployment numbers to go through the roof. So this is a way of, hopefully trying to stem that tide a bit. Now, who's offering these loans? These are Small Business Administration backed loans, but they're offered through banks, financial institutions, Bank of America, M&T Bank, Key Bank. If you get on the website of the Small Business Administration, or you just do a search for CARES Act of 2020, and you get into the Payroll Protection Program, it'll list all your local financial institutions that are offering it. And then you can get on their websites, you fill out the application right there. Now, this is changing hourly, because there was $349 billion set aside for this program. The CARES Act overall is about $2.2 trillion. So 349 billion of it is for this only. So once that 349 billion gets spoken for, then it's shut off. So it's almost a first come, first serve basis. Now, this past Friday, April 3rd, is when the first day you could apply. And because of some technical difficulties, only 3 institutions were up and running initially. By midday, those 3 had to shut down because their computer systems couldn't keep up with everything. They
Wow.
were back up and running for the weekend. I think I read that Wells Fargo Bank had originally $10 billion set aside for this program, and by Sunday night, they had allocated their $10 billion, so they were shut off. So I read something this afternoon that the Senate is getting together Thursday to vote on a amendment to this bill to increase another $250 billion for this program alone.
Wow. Wow. I mean, I think that kind of shows the magnitude that the government understands, what's happening to small businesses and individuals, the amount of money that they are putting towards the CARE Act. So, and I know that you said you had helped your daughter through the process. You said
Right.
there is a place in Syracuse, right, that people can call for assistance?
Yes, the SBDC, the Small Business Development Center, they're an arm of the SBA, and they're located right here in Syracuse, up in Onondaga Hill. They're actually right on the campus of OCC. They are fantastic because they're the Small Business Administration. They can help you fill out the forms. They can help you with reading the various law, to give you guidance. I spoke with one of their counselors yesterday morning about this, and he was very, very helpful, and they've been inundated with calls, and it's all free. I mean, you can get on the phone with them. Once this all clears up and we can see people again, you can meet with their counselors on a regular basis, face to face, at no charge. It's a great resource for the small business. And I know when I started my business a year ago this week, it was April of last year, they helped me quite a bit getting me up and running.
Nice. No, it's great that we have that resource right here in Syracuse. So the Payroll Protection Act obviously is huge, especially for people who are trying to keep their employees. There's another type of loan out there that the government is offering through the CARE Act as well.
Right. There's another big one that's is now starting to pick up a lot of speed, a lot of traction, is the Economic Injury Disaster Loan. Okay. It's very confusing because it says it's a loan, but it's actually a grant. It's also called the Emergency Economic Injury Grant. And this is something that's, once again, there's not a lot out there on it. It's evolving every minute. And technically what you're doing is you're applying for a loan, but then the loan is going to be forgiven, or actually what's happening is you're getting a grant to offset the loan. Okay. So it's for anything to be any type of expense. The premise of it is to help small businesses who are to make up for lost revenue. Okay. Now you can only get up to $10,000 per small business. It's not based on number of employees, percentage of lost revenue. I went through the application yesterday with somebody, and the only thing they ask you is your prior 12-month gross sales. And then you tell what industry, and I think they'll come back and they'll give you an amount. They'll tell you what amount you've been approved for. Okay. The nice thing about this is that it doesn't hurt. It doesn't cost anything to apply for it. So just quickly apply for it. And if, a week from now, 2 weeks from now, they come back and say, yes, you've gotten it, and you decide you don't want it, then you just say, no, thank you. Of what I can see, there's not a set aside amount of money. So it's not a first come, first serve. It's going to be open for a while, so anyone can apply for it. And I think they said it takes about a week to 10 days to hear back from them.
With that one, Rob, is it the same type of thing when it's when the time period's up, there's some kind of a calculation or proof that you need to show where you put the money?
No, the only proof is is the upfront application. I mean, that's the only, and you don't have to give any 1099s or W-2s or, anything to show your income or receipts or deposits for banks. It's, when you click the button to submit it, the fine print says, I attest to these are all true and factual. And this program, these grants are coming directly from the Small Business Administration.
Okay.
Okay. So you get on their website to do the application, not a financial institution for the payroll protection. You do it directly through them, and up to $10,000 they'll grant you.
Okay. So you went through both applications, and I know you said the payroll protection one was kind of detailed. This one's not as detailed from what I'm gathering.
No, this one's, it's probably equivalent to a one-page application online. I mean, that's basically you're just showing them, what type of business you're in, the fact that your sales, and that's really all. That's it.
I think I mentioned to you the fact that we're talking 2 different times. I'd probably come up with different things or think about it more thoroughly. Yesterday, when we were talking, you made the statement that you probably want to weigh the payroll protection and this small business one and figure out which one's better for you. In thinking about it, if you're the Marriott, right, and you have all these employees, $10,000 may not do much for you. It's not a small business. So that's where the difference would come between the payroll protection and the one that you're talking about, right?
Yeah. Right. The economic or the emergency economic injury grant, whatever you want to call it, the $10,000, that's administered by the small business. That is specifically, I think they're gearing that for the small business, the mom and pop local business. You can do both. Okay. One's not going to affect the other. The only thing is at the end of the 8 weeks for the payroll protection, there is some reporting between the two. So it potentially getting the emergency grant may offset some of the forgiveness on the other one, but it's if you get online, if you talk to someone, they can guide you through it.
And it's just a matter of documenting where the money goes to
Right.
make it easier at the end, so you're not scrambling at the end of the time where they're asking, where the money exactly went to. No, it makes sense. I mean, I'm sure, like you said, there's over 800 pages. The amount of information that's in there, you could talk all day telling us what it is, but you've definitely hit on the key points that we're hearing talk about on social media or out in public. So you give a little bit more of a description of what they are, because, a brief overview, on a Facebook post doesn't really give you the details that you're giving us today.
And even if it was signed, it's a bill that's done, it's changing every day. A week from now, it may look different, or you may get different answers. A lot of the verbiage in the bill is kind of vague, and the government's coming out with some, a little bit more detailed information on it. So it just stay tuned. A couple other small things that their program is, employers can defer their payroll taxes till 21 or 22. Okay, if cash flow is tight. And then the Small Business Administration is offering some debt relief, but it has to be on current Small Business Administration loans. So if you currently have a Small Business Administration loan, contact them. There could be some relief. It's a case-by-case situation. And in a relief, they're talking about, forgiving, reducing it. It's not necessarily just a deferral or a lower interest rate. It's actually relief.
Oh, nice.
Okay.
Again, like you said, that's something that you would have had to have in place prior to the CARE Act coming into play.
Right.
Gotcha.
I think that's about it. That's the major points. I did read something this afternoon that congressional leaders are already meeting to come up with the follow-up bill to this one. They would like another bill. They feel there needs to be another stimulus check for households. And they'd like to see that probably, depending on how things go here, within the next probably 3 to 4 weeks, we could be hearing about another bill coming out.
Okay. And that's something that obviously you won't know until down the pipeline. I keep thinking in my head, based on what you're telling us, Rob, that we should definitely timestamp this conversation, because tomorrow we could wake up and something.
Exactly. That's, yeah.
So in looking at my calendar, today is April 7th at 4:10. This is how things stand. So.
And you know, and everything is just changing out in the marketplace, you know, with everything every day, you know, with the economy, with the virus and the numbers we're seeing. And, you know, this state is peaking with their number of deaths, and this state is peaking next week. And that's, you know, the uncertainty of all of that is just so crazy.
It is. And again, I said this earlier, but it just seems like people are trying to be proactive. We started off, nobody was prepared for it. So, you're behind, but it does seem like the government, the communities, the organizations have done a really good job of now trying to get ahead of everything, so that when this is all said and done, unfortunately, you can't do much about the sickness and the people that are getting sick and critically ill and passing, but the economy standpoint of it, how do we come out of the virus and not be a devastation? And it seems like who knows what's going to happen, but.
And it's unfortunately, this whole thing started by a non-economic issue, unlike 08 and 09. This all started by the pandemic, and then it turned into the financial problem. So, the sooner, my personal feeling is, the sooner this virus is under control, then the sooner the economics will follow.
No,
we can't get back to work. We can't, get out there and meet people until the virus is under control. So the economy is kind of handcuffed.
Right.
And the markets are handcuffed, and the stock market lately, the last few days, have shown a little bit of recovery, but that could turn overnight if some bad news comes out. It's very, very volatile right now where we stand. So hopefully, everyone who's in a position to do something, they're making the right decisions.
Yeah. Well, and it's nice to have people like you who are staying on top of everything, so that, even if it's just a matter of sharing the information. I know, with what you do for a living, you're a little bit tied. You can help the people you currently are working with, but if somebody now is looking for information, you don't have if they don't already have a personal relationship with a financial advisor or somebody to help them management, it's hard and it's scary. So at least you sharing the information that you have with people gives them an idea of the directions that they can go. So we definitely.
And if anybody, if anybody's in that situation and they feel like they're trapped, they don't have anyone to talk to, we can still talk to people on the phone. We can still do these types of meetings. The internet is a phenomenal place. Just do some searches. You can find so much information. But the main thing is, for anyone out there like that, is just don't do anything rash. Just sit tight, and things will be all right. We'll eventually get back to normal, whatever that is.
Whatever the normal is. I heard, please don't use the word new normal anymore, but
right.
Whatever the normal will be. But, well, thank you again, as always, Rob, for being here at PAC-B and sharing the information and taking the time to give us, especially now with the CARE Act. And I'm sure we'll be talking to you again in the next few weeks, because it seems like things are changing.
Right.
So we appreciate, an update as it comes in.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
I will enjoy the rest of your day, and with the social distancing and, washing hands and all the fun stuff that we're doing now. But I look forward to talking to you again. Bye, Rob.